In the golden age of American television, The Dick Van Dyke Show wasn't just a sitcom, it was a revelation. Airing in black and white, but bursting with color and wit and heart, it portrayed the life of a comedy writer with equal parts chaos and charm. It made audiences laugh, think, and, without even trying, feel seen. Between the typewriters of the writer's room and the warmth of a suburban living room, it redefined what a television family could be. But beyond the dazzling smiles and perfect timing was a cast made of real people. Some of them became legends. Some walked away from the spotlight. Others faded into tragedy. Their stories didn't stop when the cameras did. Some grew more complicated, more painful, more human. Most of those familiar faces we once welcomed into our homes are no longer with us. The laughter still echoes, but the people behind it have slowly, quietly slipped away. Only a few remain. And even they are shadows of a fading era, carrying the memory of those golden days like a burden and a blessing. So what really happened after the lights dimmed and the applause faded? Who soared? Who stumbled? Who disappeared? This is not just a tribute. It's an excavation. A journey through brilliance and heartbreak, through television history and the fragile lives that built it. If you believe these stories deserve to be remembered, subscribe to the channel. Because the past doesn't fade, it waits to be told. Mary Tyler Moore, Laura Petrie. She looked like the perfect wife, graceful, witty, effortlessly charming in her capri pants and polished smile. But Mary Tyler Moore was never just Laura Petrie. Behind the image of sitcom perfection stood a woman constantly breaking boundaries, not just in television, but in her own fight to survive. At 24, she stepped into the Dick Van Dyke Show and stole every scene with quiet confidence. Her chemistry with Van Dyke was magnetic, her timing razor-sharp. Laura wasn't a background prop. She was funny, flawed, modern. Viewers saw a woman they hadn't seen before, and they embraced her. But Mary didn't stay in anyone's shadow for long. After the series ended, she returned stronger, as Mary Richards on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, a character that redefined women on television. Off-screen, she co-founded MTM Enterprises, producing landmark shows like Rhoda, Lou Grant, and Hill Street Blues. She wasn't just performing, she was building empires. Her range was undeniable. An Oscar-nominated performance in Ordinary People revealed a darker edge, and she earned a Tony Award for her stage work. She returned to television again and again, on The Ellen DeGeneres Show, That 70s Show, and Hot in Cleveland, because she had something more to say. But her personal life bore the weight of quiet devastation. Her childhood was marked by instability. She married young, had her only son early, and suffered an unbearable loss when he died at 24. Family tragedies followed, losses that left lasting emotional wounds. She struggled with alcoholism. She lived with type 1 diabetes for decades. Through it all, she kept smiling for the public. When she died in 2017 from complications of pneumonia, tributes praised her as a pioneer. But Mary Tyler Moore was more than that. She didn't just open doors for women to be funny, smart, and successful. She showed they could be all of that while still bearing the bruises life leaves behind. And that's what made her unforgettable. Rosemary, Sally Rogers. She had been a star long before she ever sat at the writer's table next to Rob Petrie. Long before the Dick Van Dyke Show, Rosemary had already conquered vaudeville, radio, film, and nightclubs. Her voice, gritty, brassy, unmistakable, was known to audiences across generations. But it was as Sally Rogers, the wisecracking comedy writer with a sharp tongue and a soft heart, that she became television royalty. Born Rosemary Mazzetta in 1923, she began performing at the age of 3 under the name Baby Rosemary. By 5, she had her own radio show on NBC. She sang jazz standards with a voice far beyond her years and rubbed shoulders with the greats before she even learned cursive. While other children played dress-up, Rosemary played the palace. By the time she joined the Dick Van Dyke Show, she wasn't a newcomer, she was a veteran. Sally Rogers was modeled after real women in television's early writers' rooms, and Rose brought that character to life with biting wit and effortless rhythm. But it wasn't just a performance. She had lived that world. She was that woman. After the series ended, she transitioned seamlessly into the Doris Day Show, playing Myrna Gibbons. She returned to the stage alongside Rosemary Clooney in the musical Revue for Girls 4 and made memorable appearances on shows like SWAT, Herman's Head, and Caroline in the City. But perhaps most surprisingly, in her later years, she reinvented herself once more on social media. She connected with a new generation, offering behind-the-scenes stories, fierce opinions, and unwavering support for causes like #MeToo. She never faded. She never slowed down. And she never stopped speaking her mind. Rosemary passed away in December 2017 at the age of 94. But her voice, bold, unapologetic, utterly unique, still echoes. She wasn't just part of television history. She was history, and she never let anyone forget it. Mory Amsterdam, Buddy Sorrell. He could write a joke faster than most people could finish a sentence. Mory Amsterdam wasn't just funny. He was relentless, sharp, instant. They called him the human joke machine, and not without reason. On the Dick Van Dyke Show, as Buddy Sorrell, he was the wisecracking, irreverent comic relief in the writer's room, always ready with a one-liner that cut through tension like a knife through silk. But his story didn't begin in sitcoms. It began in the shadows of speakeasies, with real danger lurking behind every piano. In his teens, he worked comedy rooms in Chicago, even playing at a club owned by Al Capone. One night, caught in a shootout, he realized jokes might keep him alive, but they couldn't stop bullets. So he left town, and comedy became more than a job. It became a shield. By the time he joined the Dick Van Dyke Show, Amsterdam had already built a career writing for the biggest stars in showbiz: Fanny Brice, Jimmy Durante, Will Rogers. His timing was impeccable, his delivery effortless. As Buddy, he didn't have to stretch far. He simply turned up the volume on his own personality. It worked. The chemistry between him, Rosemary, and Van Dyke was electric, the kind that couldn't be manufactured. After the show, he stayed busy. He popped up on The Partridge Family, made regular appearances on game shows like Match Game and Hollywood Squares, and continued to tour nightclubs where audiences still clung to the rhythms of classic American comedy. He produced films. He even starred in his own self-written farce. But Buddy Sorrell never left him, because it was never really a character. It was who he was. He died in October 1996, just months after a cameo in Caroline in the City. He was 87. Mory Amsterdam left behind a library of jokes, a life lived fast and funny, and a legacy that refuses to be forgotten. He didn't just punch up scripts. He punched through eras. Richard Deacon, Mel Cooley. On screen, he was the man everyone loved to mock. Stern, bespectacled, perpetually flustered, Richard Deacon played Mel Cooley like a man born to be exasperated. As the straight-laced producer of the fictional Alan Brady show, he was the perfect foil to the chaos around him. And no matter how many times Buddy Sorrell jabbed him with a punchline, Deacon stood firm, deadpan, precise, and endlessly watchable. But the man behind the glasses was far more complex than the uptight executive he portrayed. Born in Philadelphia in 1922, Deacon began on the stage, where his deep voice and commanding presence drew immediate attention. Early on, legendary actress Helen Hayes told him he'd never be a leading man, but that his future lay in character roles. It wasn't a slight. It was prophecy. He took her words and ran with them, becoming one of the most reliable supporting actors of his generation. From Leave It to Beaver to the Beverly Hillbillies, Deacon appeared in dozens of television hits, always with the same polished authority. But while audiences saw only the stern exterior, those close to him knew a different man, bookish, gentle, and deeply passionate about the culinary arts. Yes, Mel Cooley cooked. In real life, Deacon was a gourmet chef. In the 1980s, he even hosted a Canadian TV show about microwave cooking and published a companion book that sold over 1 million copies. It was a surprising second act for someone so often typecast as stiff and humorless. And yet, it made perfect sense. Richard Deacon had always been more than what he appeared to be. He died of cardiovascular disease in August 1984 at the age of 62. His passing was quiet. No scandal, no spectacle. Just the closing of a chapter in television history. Richard Deacon didn't need to be loud to leave a mark. He did it with posture, with timing, with restraint. And through Mel Cooley, he proved that even the straight man could steal the show. Ann Morgan Guilbert, Millie Helper. She didn't need to shout to be noticed. As Millie Helper, the inquisitive and endlessly talkative next-door neighbor, Ann Morgan Guilbert was a scene stealer in the quietest way. With her tilted expressions, impeccable timing, and ability to turn a single line into a character moment, she became one of the Dick Van Dyke Show's most beloved supporting players. But Gilbert's brilliance didn't end on Bonnie Meadow Road. After the series wrapped, she became a chameleon across American television, shifting effortlessly from drama to comedy, from wide-eyed warmth to biting humor. She appeared on The Andy Griffith Show, Dragnet 1967, I Dream of Jeannie, and The Partridge Family, never playing the same woman twice, but always bringing that same spark. In the 90s, a new generation came to know her as Yetta Rosenberg, the chain-smoking, lace-wearing, completely unpredictable grandmother on The Nanny. Beneath the wild wigs and comic absurdity was the same sharp wit and seasoned soul that once lit up black and white sitcoms. Yet for all her television fame, Gilbert never abandoned the stage. She returned to Broadway, performed in dozens of plays across the country, and earned critical acclaim for roles that demanded more than just punchlines. She wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing truth, wherever the script led her. Born in Minneapolis in 1928 and trained at Stanford, she had 2 daughters, including actress Hallie Todd, and remained married to fellow actor Guy Raymond until his death. Off-screen, she was deeply private, but on-screen, she was fearless. Gilbert passed away in June 2016 after a battle with cancer. She was 87. Her legacy isn't just in the characters she played, it's in how she played them. With restraint, with curiosity, with an honesty that made even the quirkiest neighbor feel like someone you actually knew. Jerry Paris, Jerry Helper. He played the friendly neighborhood dentist with a boyish grin and comic ease, but Jerry Paris never really belonged in the background. As Jerry Helper, he was the perfect suburban foil to Rob Petrie's manic brilliance, grounded, affable, and always a little overwhelmed. Viewers knew his face, but what they didn't know was that his true genius was unfolding just out of frame. Paris didn't enter Hollywood through the front door. Born William Gerald Paris in San Francisco, he served in the Navy during World War II, studied at both NYU and UCLA, and began on the stage before earning small but memorable roles in films like Marty, The Cane Mutiny, and The Wild One. He was often cast as the sidekick, the pal, the guy in the next room. But while Hollywood kept him just off-center, Jerry was watching, learning, preparing to pivot. That pivot came during the Dick Van Dyke Show, when Carl Reiner gave him a shot at directing. It changed everything. Paris took to it instinctively, directing more than half of the show's episodes, 84 in total. He won an Emmy for it. And then, he walked away from acting completely. He went on to direct some of the most iconic series in American television: The Munsters, That Girl, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and most notably, Happy Days, where his work earned multiple Emmy nominations. His camera was always moving, playful, dynamic, just like him. In film, he directed comedies like Viva Max and Star Spangled Girl, and in 1986, just months before his death, he completed Police Academy 3, Back in Training. It would be his last project. Diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor, Jerry Paris died shortly after surgery at just 60 years old. Predeceased by his wife Ruth and survived by 3 children, he left behind a legacy built not on celebrity, but on craftsmanship. He may have started in front of the camera, but Jerry Paris found his voice behind it. And when he finally spoke, television listened. Carl Reiner, Alan Brady. He was never supposed to be the face of the Dick Van Dyke Show. In fact, when the show was first conceived, Carl Reiner envisioned himself playing the lead role, a fictionalized version of his own life as a comedy writer. But the network said no. Too New York, too Jewish, too intellectual. So he stepped back, rewrote, recast, and in doing so, created television history. Reiner wasn't just the man behind Alan Brady, the egotistical, toupee-wearing TV star who loomed large over the fictional writer's room. He was the architect of the entire show. Every character, every dynamic, every laugh was born from his own experience in the early days of television, particularly his time writing for Sid Caesar on Your Show of Shows and Caesar's Hour. After Van Dyke took the lead, Reiner moved behind the curtain, but not completely. His eventual appearances as Alan Brady, at first just a voice, then a face, became some of the show's sharpest comic moments. And it was only fitting. The man who built the world couldn't resist stepping into it. But the Dick Van Dyke Show was just the beginning. Reiner went on to direct a string of successful films. Oh, God, The Jerk, All of Me, many of them in collaboration with Steve Martin, whom he helped launch into stardom. He authored over 20 books, appeared on countless television shows, and even voiced a character in Toy Story 4. Well into his 90s, he remained sharp, funny, and, most of all, curious. He died in June 2020, at the age of 98, in his Beverly Hills home. No scandal, no noise, just the quiet departure of a man who had said everything he needed to say, with grace, laughter, and an unmatched pen. Carl Reiner didn't just create a show. He created a standard, and long after the last punchline fades, that standard remains. Dick Van Dyke, Rob Petrie. He was the heartbeat of the Dick Van Dyke Show, the lanky, limber Rob Petrie who tripped over an ottoman and into the heart of American television. But the brilliance didn't end there. From Mary Poppins to Diagnosis, Murder, from vaudeville-style song and dance to Broadway and beyond, Dick Van Dyke became a living timeline of American entertainment. His charm aged, but never faded. Long after the series wrapped, he continued performing. On stage, on screen, on talk shows, and even in surprise appearances no one expected. He danced in his 90s. He sang. He laughed. He reminded audiences that joy wasn't something to outgrow. It was something to protect. By 2025, he remains a rare figure. One of the very few who can still recall, firsthand, the rhythms of that iconic writer's room. He carries the memory not as a burden, but as something alive. A heartbeat that never really stopped. And when he smiles, it feels like the 60s never ended. Larry Matthews, Richie Petrie. He was the child in the middle of it all. The son of Rob and Laura Petrie, wide-eyed and curious, always one line away from stealing the scene. But Larry Matthews was more than a TV kid. He was part of a cultural moment when television families felt real. And when the series ended, he quietly stepped away, choosing to leave the spotlight rather than chase it. Years passed. Decades, even. He returned only occasionally, once in 1993, again in 2004, to reunite with cast members, to reflect. In between, he built a life behind the scenes, working in post-production and voiceover. Always connected, but never chasing fame. And now, in the passing shadow of 2025, he remains one of the last links to that black and white world. Older, wiser, far from the little boy on the living room floor, but still carrying something precious. Memory, continuity, and the echo of laughter that refuses to fade. They made us laugh, but behind every laugh was a life. And behind every life, a cost. The Dick Van Dyke Show was lightning in a bottle, timing, talent, and truth, captured in black and white, yet more alive than anything on television today. It redefined sitcoms. It redefined families. And for 5 seasons, it gave America something to hold on to. But time doesn't pause for punchlines. And brilliance, no matter how bright, fades. One by one, they left us. Some quietly, some tragically, some with final acts that no writer could have imagined. Their stories, Mary's resilience, Rosemary's fire, Morey's machine gun wit, Deacon's discipline, Gilbert's grace, Paris's transformation, Reiner's genius, each one a legacy cut in different stone. And yet, not all of them are gone. As of now, a few remain, living echoes of that golden room. Their presence is not a promise, it's a reminder that what we have today is fleeting, that memory is fragile, and that honoring the past isn't nostalgia, it's responsibility. If these stories moved you, then don't let them vanish into silence. Subscribe, share, remember, because this isn't just television history. It's what it means to be human, funny, flawed, and unforgettable.